Hi, I'm Angel. I just started working for Instacart during these COVID-19 times of uncertainty. I thought I would share my top tips after my first day and a half on the job. Um, it's actually a subcontracting job, by the way, so you're not a formal employee, or I am not a formal employee. I'm a subcontractor, which suits me well because that's kind of been my MO in a lot of other things, even though I do have two master's degrees. Here in the time of upheaval, I find myself with my main business faltering and a lot of my side hustles, including my Airbnb um, and my cleaning jobs and my body working jobs, all kind of put on hold or simmered way down. And so I decided to go ahead and pick up a little extra cash flow by taking up some Instacart delivery. And so I just jumped on in yesterday. Actually, let me back up. I jumped on in about a week and a half ago, and it took about a week for me to get a card in the mail. And and then once I registered that card, it said that my background check was approved pretty quickly after that. So I don't know if it really took that long or if it was waiting for me to get the card. I imagine it was probably waiting for me to get the card. And here's tip number one that I want to impart to as far as what I've learned so far. I looked up some YouTube videos from other Instacart shoppers from years past, and I didn't run into any shopping in my area or shopping currently. And what I've found is that all the numbers given in by all other YouTubers and anywhere I found online are no longer in service. It is virtually impossible to get a hold of anybody, right, at least right now. That being said, I also found that there was many glitches, starting with, so day one was yesterday for me. I just jumped in. I took three, uh, three batches, they're called, and the last one I was sent to a store that was already closed. I had a little brief interaction via text with a fairly irritated customer, and I have yet to see any reimbursement from that, nor or get a hold of anybody who might be able to reimburse me. So that was glitch one. Then today I did pretty well in the morning. Got 4 batches done, and then my very last batch, I took a short break and went to do one more batch, and that was my first double batch, and my phone and the service and the app all conspired to have many glitches, and I managed to get the order done, but it wasn't showing up in the app. I had to correspond with the buyers and get their addresses separately and put in the information about 4 times. It took me many extra hours. And then when I finally did find the little icon that I kept being told was supposed to be there but wasn't there before, finally did show up, and I was able to get to a chat box which said that there was 3,340 some people ahead of me. And I did wait in that chat box for several hours. Of course, I was doing other things, but never did quite get through. So in that time, then I decided to go ahead and switch to a different track phone because I happened to have one available. And lo and behold, that did seem to solve the problem. I don't know whether it was, now I had found an email to send them at that point, or if it was just time and they worked it out. But that was a long-winded way of saying tip number one is don't panic. It's true in general, all times. It's especially true during these pandemic times. And it's also especially true if you're going to work for Instacart, because things are probably going to go wrong. I imagine that's even true, for any new job, and especially involving a lot of tech, and it's a fairly new system, at least in my area, so people aren't used to it, including me. The cashiers aren't used to it. The app is malfunctioning. The internet is not always 100%, and so be prepared for delays. Be prepared for things to go wrong. And my tip is to really just be patient and don't let overwhelm get the best of you. So if you need to take breaks, remember to take deep breaths, remember to focus on, gratitude. And for me, just having some work, feeling like I'm helping people has been really uplifting. Even in the day I was getting really depressed. We're in approaching a whole month now of lockdown in the town that I'm in, and yeah, I live alone and work alone, and so it's been nice to feel like I'm helpful. So tip number 1 is don't panic, don't let overwhelm get the best of you, remain calm. Expect to be overwhelmed at times, but remember to recheck your attitude, practice patience. I recommend using some aromatherapy or some, deep breathing techniques. Just in between just plan on spending a couple minutes between or during every batch, realigning yourself, calming yourself, and if you know that's coming, then maybe it will be easier to not be overwhelmed by that. Tip number 2 is you're not going to find any support. That was kind of folded into tip number 1 or my storyline there. All numbers, at least during this COVID time. As I mentioned, 3,000 and some people ahead of me in the chat box. I did actually tune in, 4 hours later or 3.5 hours later via the app on the other phone, and it was 300 and some people ahead of me. So that had declined a lot in the hours, and I imagine that's just because most people like me had just decided to try to take care of it on their own. I certainly, I got only automated responses to the email that I managed to get through, and of the 3 numbers that I managed to find, which took some finding, including the number that was at the bottom of the email that I got via automated response, all those numbers have an automated message right now saying that that the number doesn't work and that you should use the app. And then when you go to the app, there's no way to call. There's only a chat box, and there are thousands of people waiting. And it says, so again, I don't think this is always the case. I think that they wouldn't be in business as long if they were, always this unsupportive. And so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm just grateful for the work. And so I'm kind of trusting, especially now that I've seen some videos from other shoppers who've been at it a couple years. So, and I do Airbnb, and I know people who do Uber. And so I've come and I've been in, I started with eBay 20 years ago. So I'm familiar with the way tech run, app run things are, and they tend to have glitches and problems, and you just have to be patient, expect delays. And in this case, with Instacart during times of COVID-19, do not expect any support. Rather than waiting for support or going after support, I highly recommend trying to figure it out yourself, and take breaks if you need to. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is along the same lines. Practice gratitude. That's, really a tool for not letting overwhelm get the best of you. But again, it's challenging, especially when you're starting during these times of COVID-19, as I'm going to call them. There's, this extra weight. It takes a really long time to get into the stores. On the flip side, sometimes there's a lot less traffic in the stores and out on the streets, so that's nice. But one of my favorite sayings that I heard recently from one of my favorite teachers is, if you remove the question, what about me, everything gets a lot easier, something to that effect. And so I try to remember that. And a couple times today, I did get a little overwhelmed when the app was malfunctioning and I couldn't figure out what to do. And, I had spent a lot of time at it already, and I wasn't sure if I was going to have to waste all that time. But I managed to remember gratitude, remember that I was being of service. And then that helped me, calm down enough to think of what I could do, which was I contacted the buyers. I asked them for their addresses because the app was just completely malfunctioning. And I guess that would be a bonus tip number 4, is to kind of back up your plans with maybe if I would have written down the addresses or communicated more with them initially, I think that would have helped me be a little less stressed. And of course, as I do this more it's going to get easier. I'm going to get more familiar with the way things work. And so will you if you are doing this too. So I encourage you. I think, I wanted to share my numbers with you. So depending on how I totaled it up for the first day and a half, I worked 4 hours the first day on only 2 batches. And then I actually spent a whole nother hour going downtown in the dark to a scary part of town to find the store closed, interacting with a pissed off customer. So that was like an hour plus, not even counting the time, trying to interact and find customer service. And then today I worked about 7 hours plus a half hour break. And then I spent many, many hours. Actually, so I spent about 3 hours on trying to re-input the information and deal with this glitch. But so if I count it as 11 hours, which I think would have been what it should have taken me to do that, I made about $145. So that's around $13 an hour for somebody with 2 master's degrees and used to own a business and was working for $45 an hour not long ago. That's not great, but it is something, and I'm super grateful for it. And if I total it the other way with all my time, that I haven't got paid for yet and probably may not, and consider it just training, then I made about $8.50 an hour. About 17 hours. But that's still like minimum wage. And again, it's giving me a sense of purpose. If I look at it as being of service and giving myself something to do instead of just being at home, being depressed, and bringing in a little money. And I do think it's going to improve. I do think that I will be making more like 15 to 20, maybe $25 an hour in my area. And I like the idea that as I travel, that maybe I can make more or at least something in other areas as well. So that's my 3 tips. I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any to share or you have any questions for me. Again, I'll be sharing more, I'm sure, down the road. This is me on day 2, about it, 1.5 days in of just jumping into my Instacart endeavors. And I will repeat. Tip number 1 is don't panic. Tip number 2 is don't really expect support. Go ahead and try to figure stuff out on your own. And tip number 3 is remember to practice gratitude. Remember that you're being of service, and that should help you with the overwhelm. As always, I hope you give me a thumbs up. Share this video if you think it's valuable to anybody else. I welcome your questions and comments. I welcome your support. Check out the description for ways you can support me. And until next time, I wish you love, lightheartedness, peaceful conflict resolution, amazing adventures. Don't forget to play every day and drive forward.